Ready? Okay. So next up, we're going to have a podcast. I'm not going to do a long introduction because they're going to introduce themselves as part of the podcast. And you're probably tired of hearing my introductions anyway. So we have Mike, CJ, Mel. Yeah, we always learn something. Mike, CJ, Mel, and Karell are gonna have a podcast here for us live. We're like live in studio right now. So take it away.
Is this on? Perfect. Can everyone hear me? All right. So first off, thanks for having us. This is going to be a little bit of a different type of conversation. It's not going to be technical at all. We're going to be discussing a little bit of sort of the culture of analytics in hockey. I myself am a hockey player, and how does this pertain to me? Does it matter? I went to St. Lawrence University. I played hockey there. I played for the CWHL. The league unfortunately folded last year, and we, both Kevin and I, are members of the Professional Women's Hockey Players Association, so we'll probably touch a little bit on the state of women's hockey near the end and just discuss how analytics pertains to the women's game. So first off, to start, Kevin and I are going to start the podcast as we normally do, so it's going to sound a little bit robotic, but that's just for recording purposes so that we can start the show as we always do.
Good.
Hi, I'm Mel.
And I'm Kat,
And you're listening to The Last Stretch.
a sports podcast.
Cats, we have an exciting show today. We are live, which is new to me. Normally we are in a small studio with a couple pints, but today we're in a lecture hall at Carleton, and we're at the Ottawa Hockey Analytics Conference, and we are extremely excited because we have two great guests today. We have CJ here, who is an analyst and has a website dedicated solely to women's hockey, along with Matt Barlow. And then we have Dr. Desrochers as well, stats professor at St. Lawrence, who also works closely with our old coach, Karell. Shout out to Wellesley.
Chris Wells. Hello.
So, on the podcast, you guys already know who I am, but for everyone in the audience, my name is Melanie Desrochers. I play hockey at St. Lawrence University, a D1 program in Canton, New York. Love that place. And I am a current member of the PWHPA, a Professional Women's Hockey Players Association, fighting for the right to have equity and equality in the women's game at the professional level. I do not work in analytics. I have a background in neuroscience, both my bachelor's and my master's, but I do like data and nerdy things, but I'm also a hockey player, and sometimes I'm like, the best games I've played is when I don't think, so do I need an iPad on the bench?
That's a very good question. And on that note, I'm Karell Emard. I'm also a member of the Professional Women's Ice Hockey Players. And like she said, we're fighting for equality. I currently am a co-host today, I guess. Shout out to Satya, who's usually the host for the podcast. And I work as a product manager for SportLogic. We do need a job as professional hockey players, and this is why we're fighting for it. But on another note, I would like you guys to introduce yourself. So, Dr. Shocker? Or should I go Shockers? How should I do this?
Desrochers is, yeah, just fine.
Perfect.
Teach statistics at St. Lawrence University. For the last decade or so, been involved in doing some work with hockey analytics, including some work with the women's hockey team at St. Lawrence. And one of the organizers of this conference, probably worth mentioning today.
And then CJ, if you can give us a brief.
I'm a high school math teacher by profession. My name is CJTurturo, and I've been working publicly in analytics for about 2 years. So basically, I'm him, but dumber and younger, right?
Equally good looking.
Maybe later.
All right, and I'm here because I got involved with women's hockey analytics shortly after Mike Murphy did his presentation at RITSAC in 2018. I just reached out to a couple people that I knew were already involved and wanted to see what I could do to help out. And I've done a little bit for evenstrength.com. I want to make clear at the onset that I'm probably the third most involved of the three people up there, and then I got Matt up here too, who was involved before he got poached away by the NHL. Alyssa Longyear and Jake Flamser are also they're more involved than I would say I am. I created a estimated time on ice model because they don't track time on ice in the NWHL, and that helps for getting all things regarding rate stats. And the two of them, I mean, Alyssa has been a crusader with regards to women's hockey analytics. So I just want to give them a quick shout out right here.
Shout out to them.
So for the people that only listen to the first 10 minutes of the podcast, I don't think I'm trying to steal the spotlight.
No, but any contribution to our sport is helpful, especially at the women's side. I mean, as you said, estimated time on ice, we just go with, I'm winded, can you go? But because majority of our listeners are just people who are interested in sports in general, so we're going to start with like a softball question of just like, what is analytics and, how has it changed? Just briefly, because like, when I was playing, all I knew was that there was like a score sheet, Did I score a goal, plus or minus? That's about it. 2 minutes in the box for Karell for sure, probably 6. But just what is analytics and how has it evolved? And from my perspective, it's evolved really quickly. It seems. What do you think that stems from?
So I think hockey analytics has been evolving, maybe even for the last 20 years. But I think as you mentioned, Mel, it really has accelerated over the last 5 or 6 years. I think it is, as one of our keynote speakers earlier, Ryan Simpson, said, that it is data-driven decision-making, right? So it is more than just, right, the coaches watching film and looking at it, but it is actually trying to sort of quantify some of the things that are happening and going on the ice. So I guess, did I answer both questions there?
I nailed it. I mean, there's no right answer. I mean, we live in a world that's like so highly driven by data now, because there's just so much more of it. And I think on the women's side, that's what's lacking, because A, we don't play as much, we don't have video footage. If we do, it's not great quality. How can we provide the same services to the women's game too? So it's not to discredit like the analytics community. You have free data every night of the week. And there's this ton of it. Like you can only create good algorithms with large data sets. So we understand that. But I guess like another thing we could just jump into it is like, why did you get involved in hockey analytics? Like, I feel like there's so many sports out there. Is it your proximity to, Wellesley? And for you, it was a conference, it seems, that stemmed it. So how did you get into sports specifically as a statistician, and why hockey?
So I guess I'll start and tell my story since I'm the one holding the mic. So I grew up in Pennsylvania, doing a lot of baseball. Was really, at that time, there was all these numbers with baseball, but also playing football at a high level in high school, and was very interested. If this thing had been going on then, I would have dove right in, but that didn't seem like a viable path however many years ago, and so I went into academia and did the academics, and then got a job in 2002 at St. Lawrence University, northern New York, a town of 8,000 with 6 hockey rinks within 20 minutes, and so lots of interest and lots of hockey going on. Probably about just 10 or a dozen years ago, my kids are playing hockey. It's obviously an interest of a lot of my students, some of whom are here today. So a shout out to a couple of SLU folks who have come and attended the conference. And for me, it continues to be, as much as it is also fun and now a real passion, it is a way to motivate students and get them excited about statistics.
So for me, it was I'll probably break it down into 2 different things. I'm a hockey fan because, my dad actually grew up a Rangers fan, and then he moved to New Jersey, and the Devils became a team when while he was living here, and that's in the state that identifies as a New Jersey team. So a little bit of state pride, I guess, would be what got me originally involved in that, and also the Devils were really good when I was a kid, so memories. I've been a Devils fan for my whole life. I went to games when I was 3, right? And then I started to get involved in analytics for hockey because I've always been a pretty mathematically inclined person. I used to just use it to beat my friends at fantasy football, but now I figured out about, I don't know, I'm going to say 6-7 years ago, my college roommate actually said there's this really cool Devils blog called In Louis Trust, which is now all about the jersey, the blog that I write for. And he said they do a lot of really cool analytics stuff. They did a lot of research and just reporting on the state of hockey analytics and how it applied to the Devils. Ryan actually used to write for them as well, and that's where I met him originally. And eventually they asked for people to do write-ins, to ask for potentially new writers. I did it, they liked what I did, and since then I've just been progressively learning more and more about analytics and really got into it within the last 2-3 years with Corey Snyder's transition metrics stuff. So.
Okay, and I guess you touched it a little bit, but how would you say, how far has it come? How has it evolved? If we honestly looked at the sheet back then, the box score and everything, and I kind of know a lot more now that I work for a company that is all about stats, but I would love to know, a little bit, take us through, where are we now? Where did it start, and then where are we and where we're going type of thing?
I think you may be able to help out a little bit more here after I'm done saying some potentially wrong things. But I normally, when I'm writing pieces about this kind of thing, I like to backtrack a little bit for the readers that don't know a lot about the history a lot, and try to landmark a couple of really important innovations. So, obviously the first one being just counting shots. Like Brian said, there's some of these things are really intuitive. Just shooting more than the other team is better. Right. Then, if you try to make it into player specific, right, you want to look into are you doing well just because you're on a good team or because you're uniquely helpful. That branches off into relative stats, relative to your team, and then that has its own set of innovations where we then move on to relative to teammate, and then moving on to RAPN models, which is a really fancy and awesome way of doing relative stats, right? That the Bowling Wild Twins have the most well-known version of in hockey right now. And then in the other branch off of the Corsi metrics, you have getting more specificity about the types of shots. For instance, you end up moving towards the expected goals area thing. So I think that those, I never know where that new brand of innovation is going to come from, but those are, I think, the mainstream portions, and the expected goals and the RAPNs are what those have branched off into, and they kind of communicate to help create war models. And then you have the other, the people like Corey and like Ryan and myself who look into micro statistics that are things that players are specifically doing, trying to get explicit examples of what an action that they perform is and how it might impact the results on the ice, as opposed to trying to derive it implicitly from the results of the entire team. You can correct me if
No,
I
I think you did a nice job there, CJ. And I think where we are now is we're in a place where the tracking data, so we're going to be able to do more and more fine-tuned details. And companies like Sportlogic and others are adding to the data sets that are available. I think one of the big innovations in the last 10 years, as CJ mentioned, was some of this tracking data where we're hand tracking things like the zone entries and the passes. And that adds to the data sets we already have, and then that adds to analyses that we can do, right? And then eventually, hopefully, knowledge.
Okay, yeah, and in that kind of evolution and everything and stuff, as a player, I know stats has had an impact on the sports itself and everything, and you guys see it more and more probably, but what, personally, Chris Wells brought it up to us when we were at SLU through our professor, and he was focusing on turnovers and the relations between turnovers, where they were to how it could lead to goals. And that was the first time that a coach actually brought up stats to us players, and that we put some kind of a, it could actually affect the results or anything. So what kind of impact do you think it has on actual players right now? Like, do they take a look at this? Do they spend the time? And I guess our audience would help too, but that would be a question to it. Towards you.
Or the question would be, do you think we care as a player? Because I think we could address that best. Because I play my best games when I'm not thinking on the ice. But I guess it's like, how much can data help me prepare for when I go on the ice? And because sometimes it's like, we just need that representation. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. As we just heard, it's like defense, if they skate the puck in, regardless of their talent, aren't going to produce as much as the forward does. And Karell leaned over to us, that's interesting. I go, evidently, because if I play defense, I go, if I skated it up, all the forwards are standing on the blue line. Who am I going to pass the puck to when I get in the zone? You know what I mean? As the forward skates in, the probability of them probably skating in with a teammate is higher than as the defense does, depending on the situation. Because like, majority of the time, if I'm skating in the zone, it's because none of the forwards are open.
It's our fault.
Or I jumped in really early on the rush and I'm playing more as a forward at that point. Like I beat my forward, I'm third man in. Woman in. See? The nomenclature. But do you think, like, as analytics, do you do this because you want players to just do it, or is it just a passion,
It's certainly a passion, for sure. The hope is that some of the things that you do eventually have an impact, right? That eventually it sees its way into whatever, the GM's office or onto the ice. I think how you communicate to players in terms of some of the strategies and some of the tactics is huge. And, I've never been an ice hockey player or coach, but I've coached my kids travel soccer for the last couple of years, and there's no way that I'm going to say, okay, you're right, in this situation, you're going to do this with the ball because 80% of the time it's much better, right? You're going to say, right, you're right, do this, right? And I may change my coaching, right, in what I tell them to do, but I doubt that I'm going to give them the numbers for why, right? Now, some of that is also player dependent. We've got some examples from where analytics goes into the NBA, and we know players like Shane Battier, going back a couple of years now, Shane Battier, are able to sort of internalize the numbers that they get for making decisions. But the last thing you want a player doing, right, in a high-speed game of any kind is stopping to think about what they should be doing, right? Because then they're done, right? I mean, you're going to lose the puck, you're going to turn it over, all of those bad things. But I guess the bigger picture is, right, that, the open question of how we take analytics and transition it into the coaches and the time that they spend.
Yeah, I think our keynote speaker did a good job there of pointing out some of how you can open that conversation with very discrete, simple, actionable, but evidence-based pieces of information that you can communicate well to players. Like being able to just pick a spot on the ice and say, okay, I need to be in line with the dots on the zone entry. That's an easy thing that doesn't require stopping and doing a quick calculation, right, to figure out what the important thing is to do. For anyone who's seen Moneyball, so the whole room, then you can remember the scenes where you got like Jonah Hill in there talking to the athletes and giving them a couple of simple things to remember, like take more pitches, right? And then that's the kind of thing that in batting practice you can try to train to yourself. It's not something that needs to be done during the gameplay. It's just, these are generally things that we found out lead to better outcomes more often than not, and it might be something that you want to look into introducing into your game.
Absolutely, because you could think of anytime you want to implement change, it's breaking habits. So, as a player, it's just nice to be aware of my habits sometimes and how I might change that. And you brought up a great point about batting practice. Like, we could change the way we do certain drills. If for some reason our team is always shooting very wide for some, like from, I don't know, outside the dots. And the coaches go, well, why aren't you shooting inside the dots? Well, we haven't done a drill where we were asked to, you know, I don't know, somehow break into you know, the home plate, the home plate to take a shot. So I think that was an interesting point, just how, you know, introducing some of these tendencies and making adjustments in practice can be beneficial. And, you know, this is all alluding to how is analytics going to influence the culture of hockey. You know, as, well, in our state, we don't really have a salary, but you know, it's curious for me, if I were making $1 million, how is analytics affecting my ability to retain my job or potentially make more money? Because it's a very dynamic sport, and I've experienced it too. Like, a lot of your play is dependent on your line mates, who you get put on the ice with. You know, if a stats is telling me I don't perform well, but then for me it's frustrating to be like, yeah, I'm not performing well. I go out fourth line against their top line because there's mismatching every time and we're getting lit up. That would be the hockey term. It can be frustrating. So how do you think this is going to impact players, like coaches' decisions or GM's decisions? Do you think they're taking account analytics intensely in their choices, or it's at this point just with what we got, it's sort of more of a little add-on or bonus, or they use it as confirmation for something when they see fit?
Yeah, I think that it's highly inconsistent throughout the league. You can see some front offices that seem to be buying in quite a bit, like Maple Leafs, Hurricanes, right? And you can see the results of those on the ice a lot. I don't know that, I think that hockey more so than certainly the rest of the four major sports is very old-fashioned in how, you know, resistant it is to taking in some of these innovations. There's kind of this perception that, you know, hockey is a really dynamic sport. How could you possibly hope to model something like this? But like, ask a meteorologist, you know, how easy it is to model weather. It's really hard, a lot harder than modeling hockey, right? And the results are even fuzzier, and you know, there's no walk of life that data is not going to be highly important in. I forget what the documentary was, but I was just watching a documentary where they said that data just recently, within the last couple of years, has exceeded oil as far as the most valuable commodity on the planet. I don't know if you remember what you heard the same thing, so I'm not making it up. Yeah, so it's, to resist the obvious benefits of it is going to be something that will get you passed by, but I think it's equally on both the front offices and the statisticians front offices to be open to the suggestions, and statisticians to make, like I said, make it actionable enough so that they're not just like talking over, like, you gotta increase your RAPN, and the player's like, okay, yeah, I got you, yeah. So that's what I'm thinking about it. You good?
Yeah, no, I think that's good. I guess I would add an anecdote, from some other sports. There is now, I guess, in golf, right? Golf has putting coaches and driving coaches. There are now golfers with analytics people on their sort of individual team. And they will choose to play some tournaments because some courses match their game better than others. And so they might skip a week and take a week of rest because that course doesn't match their game. I'm not so sure we're going to see that in hockey as much more of a team sport. But certainly, we have seen in hockey where some NHL clubs are having, one analyst working with the coaching staff and another analyst working with the GM. And so you're seeing definitely some what seem like fingerprints from the outside of what's going on.
Helping out, yes. And then in your two explanations too, I sense a trend where there's a lot of of course, data is there, it's supporting. There's a way to present it to players. There's a way to communicate it to players. Do you feel like coaches are involved? Everyone, a human is involved per se. Do you foresee any type of, getting to a point where it's almost data is not doesn't need necessarily an expert in the house, or is it always going to be combined to something like, for instance, I feel like a combination of both, having scout, or even I also coached in college, so I was scouting younger girls and whatnot, and comments that we were writing, plus the data, plus the stuff that we were working with also helped. I wonder if right now, of course, they are using the data, they're using the video that they're watching and whatnot, but what's the ratio as far as like, you know, expert versus numbers, or numbers versus, you know, the expert in itself and then the experience he has behind himself, I guess, or herself.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine you're gonna do Siri tell me who's gonna be on the power play, right? You know, I do think you're gonna need some balance. I think the data can always inform, but there's always going to be, in particular circumstances where we have small sample sizes for which you're gonna have to pull information from other places, and that's gonna be dependent on human beings. And so I think there's always going to be a human element that's going to be necessary.
I think another interesting area was that, so Alyssa was just on after you're done listening to all of the episodes of this podcast, you can then go onto the Ice Garden and check out that. Alyssa's most recent episode actually will give you a pretty good summary of where we're at analytically in the NWHL right now. But also one thing that she brought up was that, also I think it might have been in this podcast as well, but brought up how just by the virtue of the anatomy of the women's game versus the men's game right now and who's playing in it, the average education level for women that are playing hockey is going to be higher, right? Because they have to go through the 4 years of college, right? Had you mentioned that in the podcast too, or are you saying yes, I'm educated? Yes.
We bring it up.
So I think that it might be a uniquely open group a uniquely receptive group to some of these statistical innovations. Not that like all men are dumb or anything, but just by virtue of the fact that the general education level is going to be higher because you have to play college hockey if you want to extend your hockey career. So I think that that's another interesting entry point for the conversation of being open to analytics.
And I think generational too. I mean, we're a little bit younger, so I can foresee us being a little bit more open to introducing data into our games versus the old GMs that's high up who has all the influence but doesn't understand. I mean, a lot of it is just communicating so people understand how it can be beneficial, and also communicating, like as a player, I was like, I want some of it, I don't want all of it. You know, I'm the type of player, I know when I did a shitty pass, you don't need to tell me about it. Like, I saw it. So, but when you tell trends, I think I would have been open to receiving that. And I say would have been because, again, state of women's hockey. But you brought it up, like, so what got you involved in the NWHL?
So like I said, my entry point was that at the Rochester Sports Analytics Conference, I saw a presentation from Mike Murphy about NWHL statistics, and I had only recently even become aware of how prevalent the women's game was, and then his talk really made it silly to me how much data was not necessarily immediately available, but how many the people that were working so hard to get really helpful data. And that was just something that kind of struck me as a really interesting, both an important thing to do, but also just an interesting opportunity to try to see what it's like to build an analytical area from the ground up a little bit more. Because, like I said, I'm a relatively recent, I've got into analytics relatively recently, and people like Chuck over here have been doing it forever. So he was living through the beginnings of the analytics movement and contributing to it. I didn't get a chance really to do that, so I thought that this was an interesting way to try to give that level of contribution. And I mean, as an example for why I think this is important though, like I consider myself a baseball fan, but I really don't watch that much baseball. But I'm constantly checking fan graphs and Baseball Savant and different websites to just get in tune with what the analytical narratives are. I mean, like Mike Travis finished 1 or 2 in MVP, and I think if you don't think that the fact that he's always the leader in war is a relevant factor to that conversation, then you're missing a really important part of it, right? Even if it's basic statistics, right? Like the most exciting era of baseball in my life was the home run race, which is a really simple metric, but it's still, you know, it's not just watching, it's, you know, keeping track of what the full impact of a player is over the course of the season, right? It's cool to watch a home run, but like I don't remember any single home run Sammy Sosa or Mark McGwire hit. I remember what it was like to live through that race. And so I think that if you offer, and for a growing sport, you need to offer as many entrance points as possible, and analytics gives you one opportunity to have that kind of entrance point.
And I think too, just like as the sports evolves, you know, we're going to get left behind even further if we're not offered the same resources as the men's side. Because it's important, I think, to have analytics because as a player you can evolve. It all comes down to resources on the women's side, and you know, it's not your fault that like the problem with women's hockey is like there's no visibility to it. So the fact that you weren't aware of it until like a conference is not surprising to me. So you know. Thank you for your contribution because I think it is important to get everyone involved in the hockey community and just aware that you know there's a strong group of women's players out there that would love access to all this. We would probably need some major TV networks to videotape the games, but one step at a time. But I also have like this sort of dream. Like the one thing I like about data is that you're blinded by gender, race, sexuality, all of it. So for me, it's like, can someone just code what the most entertaining game, pull out all the stats, and I bet you if you pulled those metrics and did it to any one of our games, you would see that if fans loved these 5 aspects of a game, well, the women's side has the same thing. So, you know, as far as just data and representation, I think it's interesting how it can help our game from that aspect. You were blinded by the gender of the player. If you put Manny and Hillary Knight, Sidney Crosby, Ovechkin, and show their stats, I think people would be equally impressed. So, thank you for your help. We really appreciate it. I guess like we could move into a little bit, maybe you guys could interview us because we did want to cover a little bit about the state of women's hockey and where we're at. I think it's important to address it. So, questions for you guys?
I think it might be important for some people that aren't aware of the situation to just give us a quick, summary of the before the game movement and all that kind of stuff, just as a big baseline.
Sounds good. Okay, so there was the Canadian Women's Hockey League, which was the CJTurturo that had been running for 12 years. And last spring, we got word that our league had folded. All we got told was the economic model wasn't feasible, which, to be honest, it's not something, like, I would agree with that. We were set up as an NGO, it really limited our growth. My dream and thought was that one day we would fold that league with the second sentence being, and this is what we're doing now, but unfortunately we did not get that on the phone call. So that left about 200 players featuring top Olympians, and the reason I mention that is because we're at the state where I always have to sort of validate my value as a women's hockey player by saying, you know, all those Olympians, I play with them too. You know, unfortunately, I am not part of the national program, but, you know, that's the kind of level I'm playing at. So, you know, it is tough to have that conversation over and over again. But so that left 200 female hockey players with nowhere to play, and just, you know, what do we do next? As for me, I'm 27 years old, which in women's hockey is very old. Because, as you alluded to, we are highly educated because the top hockey you can play is in college. So, you know, when I was younger, when I was very young, I go, I'm going to play in the NHL. And then you kind of realize the boys get really big. I'm only 5'3". And then it was like, I'm going to be on the Olympic team, which, you know, didn't pan out for me, but you never know. And then it goes, okay, well, I'm going to go get a scholarship. You know, at least I could go get my education funded for to play against the top women in the world. So that's the top. You know, at 21 years old, I was like, well, that was a good run. I guess my career's over with. I moved to Montreal, which at the time did have a CWHL team, but I was going to grad school, and I made the unfortunate choice of being like, I don't know if I see the point of continuing to play. It's going to suck up all of my weekends. I'm starting my master's in a research program. It's going to be highly demanding. Maybe it's time I just focus on my career. And that's the unfortunate part of not having a professional women's league, is that so many talented players make that choice and do it every year. Like every year, like the criticism that we cannot build an entertaining league because there's not enough good players is bullshit. Because my graduating class, I graduated in 2014, I was not the best player at St. Lawrence. I was not the best player of all the NCAA teams and CIS, what is it called now?
The U.
The U. She's good enough. Old nomenclature. But I was not the top, and I'm the only one still playing. And why is that? Because I live in a city that has a team and I have a job that I could kind of swing hockey. Not all the time. You know, every once in a while I have to go, sorry hockey, I gotta go to work. But so that's kind of the state of where we left things off. Now there's a second league called the National Women's Hockey League, which is a US-based league that started about 5 years ago. That league is still running, but after the CWHL closed, we decided that we kind of wanted to unite and fight for something that was going to be a little bit more of an investment, something that was going to align a little bit more with our values. So we formed the Professional Women's Hockey Players Association. Yeah, I'll let you touch base.
And honestly, nothing against the league or the NWHL at all. It was just a united decision to try to educate, push the boundaries, and also get to a point where we truly have a sustainable, viable professional league, and that younger girls get to dream to play on Les Canadiens, which is like sister, or used to be the sister team of the Habs, and kind of they get to dream and keep on dreaming per se. And we, both leagues were there. They were alive for a long time. They each had their issues. And players decided to leave the NWHL or stay in the NWHL, and all decisions were okay and were understood. Basically right now, we are currently playing into what we call the Dream Gap Tour, where we play around North America, and we have areas where we tend to, or try to educate everyone that there's a better future, and there's something that we can build that's pushing even further and further than what we currently have at the professional level. We honestly are in a state of unknown, but really motivated per se, and happy that we get this opportunity. The ones that came before us, the Haley Wickenizer or the Cami Granado, and all the other ones even after them, they paved the way for us to have somewhat of a league. And now we are in a little bit of a, I wouldn't say a pickle, but something where it folded and it created this amazing opportunity. And now we're looking to get under some kind of an umbrella where we have resources, we have the live streams or the TV contracts that comes in, we have the visibility that women's hockey deserve. And sorry if we keep on bringing women's hockey in the podcast, but the fan base is there, and you guys would love it if you start doing the data and video and whatnot. Shout out to the guys upstairs too at Sports Logic. They see a couple games here and there, I just think it's just we are building something, and we want everyone to kind of join force towards that, and that's where women's hockey is at. Long story.
Essentially, this year is just about showing, making people aware of the situation. In the past, it was really hard with the CWHL because you try and play, you wear two hats. You go, yes, I'm a professional athlete, because you want to be treated and seen that way. and it's very difficult to allude to some of the realities of our situation. Like after the league folded and we're kind of, we didn't have contracts, so we could kind of speak about anything we wanted. Like it's hard to criticize a league when you're in it sometimes because nothing's going to be perfect. But now it's just making people aware that, you know, when we were getting paid to play hockey, like I made $2,000 and I was in San Francisco for work and I had to buy my own red-eye flight to come make a playoff game, you know, like
Just to
that was more than $2,000.
Just to clarify that, it was $2,000 for a full season, not weekly
Not
or
per
month.
minute.
Just to clarify. And
Also, the entire league was ran with $3 million, which
it's cheap.
troubles me when I saw the contracts going with trading up. I mean, I think it was McDavid's contract came out. I think I tweeted, I was like, oh, that's 34 years of women's hockey.
And we're laughing about this.
We're laughing. I mean,
we don't
like,
want to brag.
The thing is, like, the pie is big, and we just want to make people aware that we're worth the investment. It's really that, because it comes down, there's social good to young women seeing women continuing to pursue their dreams, and also, you know, having the opportunity to play, you know, at a professional level in any sports. And it comes down, again, to visibility. Like, even in this room, there was, you know, I commend all the women here, too, because it is a room of boys. The one plus side is the line to the bathroom is very short for women. But it comes down to visibility, and you know, I hope that young girls will be inspired by the movement we're doing. I hope young girls will be inspired by, you know, the females in the room here saying, tackling on, you know, what is predominantly a male industry, and it just comes down to seeing someone that looks like you know. Questions, or do you want to continue with the lecture?
So I just want to ask about opportunities outside North America. I happened to end up being very close to this last year's graduating class at St. Lawrence. Particularly Grace Harrison was one of my advisees. And I know that some of them are playing overseas. You just talk a little bit about those opportunities?
Yeah, so a lot of people do that after college, especially on the women's side, because it's still kind of the only opportunity where you can continue to play without having to work on the side. I would say in general you don't make money while you're in Europe, but they'll house you. Usually you share a car with, you know, the other international players. They feed you, so it's kind of the closest thing you can get to living a professional lifestyle. But generally the hockey is not as high caliber as like what you'd see in the NW or the CW at the time, and now the Professional Players Association. So a lot of times, like, and I contemplated it for a long time, but I got into grad school, and again I was like, okay, well maybe it's just time to let go and move on. But it's a good opportunity for women because you're like, I can really go play that professional life. I'm just gonna wake up, go to the gym, go to practice, call it a day, you know, where now it's like I wake up, go to the gym, go to work, maybe eat, maybe go to practice, and then, you know, 6 months of my life went by and I don't remember it. But so that's sort of where going to play overseas is, and I think a large part is why there is success is a lot of these women's teams are paired with men's programs, which help fund them. And, you know, the thing is, we're not gonna lie, it comes down to money. Like, we're not gonna joke around, but it takes an investment. I think people forget how much investment the men's side got early on and how long it took them to be as profitable like they are. So, you know, playing in Europe is a good opportunity, and I mean, I hear really good things. They have a lot of fun over there, so that's sort of what it's like.
Yeah, so I just had one more question too, because you guys talked a lot about the sport game movement, how you guys got to where you're at, and how the plan isn't for what is going to happen immediately during your careers or during your lifetimes, because you understand the pace that these kind of things go at. So I guess my question is, what is your reasonable, actionable, what is the goal for what we definitely can accomplish and what it's inexcusable not to accomplish during these next few years of the movement?
I think it's what needs to happen or has to happen is that these young girls needs to be able to, they need to be able to see professional women's hockey, or that there's a venue for them, or that there's something for them to keep going. But at the other level, like, I think we do need a true professional league that will, you know, have that typical 4 to 6 teams to start, that will be paired up with potentially our biggest league on the men's side, who knows. But it needs to happen because, let's be honest, I believe that there's a market and a target for women's and young female also. And when you look at that, when you look at business model as far as it goes, I believe that something can be established fairly quickly, and within the next 5 years, something can come out of it as far as like money being invested and the return on investment as well too. So the market research has been done from many different areas or people or stakeholders, and they know it's there. It just needs a strong support, some big corporation or multiple corporations to come and truly see that there's something to do here, and that it's honestly, we are in an unfair situation. Bring the same like opportunities from both sides is what we're kind of like striving for and fighting for. We're not looking to make millions. We're absolutely not looking to do any of that. We simply want to be able to be recognized as who we are and be treated kind of like the same way our male counterpart can be treated in a way. So if I get to not do 40 hours a week and she doesn't either, and we get to treat our body and the physio and whatnot, our game elevates in its own too. It's still at a really high level, and like she said, we're competing with Olympians. And on the other side of things too, you need to create an environment for these Olympians to keep on training so that they represent your country the right way. And if they can't, and if they keep on centralizing or however that is, you end up with a simple group of like 30 max that are getting developed, and the rest is falling through the cracks. So, you know, it needs to start from the top down and kind of like have the resources to keep the players involved, like Mel said, and we need the visibility, like we mentioned again. And honestly, it's a simple opportunity, and for someone to take a leap and to tackle and make history with us, basically. We're changing the face of women's hockey, and we're really happy about it, and we need to keep on pushing, but pushing with big players would be something very needed.
Yeah, so I think like just actionable plans like in the next couple of years, and you know, I'm not privy to a lot of the conversations happening behind the scenes. We have a board of directors, and Dana Everett is helping spearhead it. So they're the ones having the tough conversations. But like, in my opinion, like what I would like to see is I would like to see a league next year, or something that resembles a league, so that we are playing consistently. So having a set of teams and the resources to have a league where we could compete for something again. So games almost every weekend, that's what I would like to see. Maybe the year after, we start funding the players so that they don't have to continue to work. And it's not a lot of money. Like, as I was a grad student, I lived in Montreal off like 23 grand, and I think I paid 8 grand in tuition. So, and I survived. You know, so as a college student, you just want to keep playing. You don't need $1 million. So I would like to see, you know, if we go five-year plan, I want to see a full league, full season, players don't have to work. That's the basics. They don't have to like make sorry, I was going to say a shit ton of money. On my podcast, we generally are allowed to swear, but I wasn't sure if I was here. But,
well, there's normally alcohol if I was...
Yeah, there's usually times. But in general, that's what I would like to see. And it takes a lot of coordination, because there are investors that are interesting, which is nice. It's just like, how do we coordinate that? And there needs to be a plan. It's not like, here's $1 million, run with it. Like, I want a marketing plan, because that's how it's going to work. We need to market the sport. Like, no one knew they wanted the iPhone. We can't live without the iPhone. No one knew they wanted Twitter. Like, Twitter, I got involved because it is like, there's so many negative comments when it comes to women's sports where I don't understand. If you're not interested, just you're not interested. I don't particularly love the opera. I'm not like following accounts and telling them I don't like the opera. But with Twitter, like somebody tweeted, no one's interested, like it's not marketable. I go, did you know you wanted Twitter? Did you know you wanted to write 180 characters? No, it was marketed to you. But in general, I think we'll just close with like, we appreciate you guys having us and giving us the time to speak about it. And you know, for us, it's just making people aware of the situation and having you guys just know about it, and now you can have conversations with people. Hey, there are talented women still playing hockey. It's really that. It comes down to awareness, and thank you for having us, Dr. Desrochers. Thank you for inviting the show. I hope it was good.
Oh no, absolutely. Thank you. I did have one more question.
Yeah, go for it.
I think we'd like to send the mics out into the audience.
Yeah.
The U.S. and the Canadian women's team have really been dominant over the last, 20, 30 years. Do you think by not having their players in professional leagues that dominance is at risk?
I would argue that the other countries didn't necessarily have the same resources to develop their players. And then I also mentioned that Finland has now invested in their players, and they almost won. I can say that against the
They
U.S.
won.
Almost won.
If you did not see the latest Women's World Championship,
Yeah, sorry,
you need to go watch the final because there was a ruling I was so confused about. Just go watch it because we don't have time to get into
No,
this.
but basically, I believe that Canada and the U.S. have had money put aside through foundations, through organizations that work around those two associations. And I think that other countries are now starting to do that. So they're allowing those girls to actually be paid monthly and to deal with okay, I'm training for free, or I might finding a gym and vice versa. But wouldn't it be nice to have that for all professional women's athletes? Absolutely. I believe Finland did that. Sweden is working to get some kind of same equality type of funding from the men's side. We're not even talking professional fundings. We're talking whatever you invest junior side should be invested on the women's side too, on the men's and women's. I think it's a mix of just having the resources to be able to actually fight with Canada and US.
And just to add to that, I do think that the U.S. and Canada's programs can be at risk without a professional league because the volume that these girls are playing at has significantly dropped. Our girls, I say our girls and the Canadian, they're having these mini camps every few weeks where they're just going through intense practices and scrimmaging, but nothing beats playing a game. You can practice all the scenarios and play all the mini games you want, but nothing beats playing an actual game and honing those skills because at the end of the day, it comes down to decision making, which is hard to always emulate in a practice setting. So if we don't have a professional league in, let's say this went on for 5 years, which it's not, but let's say it did, I would be significantly worried with the Canadian and US programs. Just the development of women's hockey in general would diminish because, as I said, young graduates right now, if you're not already in the national program getting funded through Hockey Canada, well, you're going to work. And right now, Karell and I, not being on a national team, I've played 7, 8 games maybe.
Yeah, so far. Yeah.
8 games, and 2 of them were a week into September where I didn't touch the ice all summer because we don't get ice time in the summer. I play men's beer league and I love those guys, but it's not the same.
But again, this is obviously a different scenario. If we have a league, it was different with the CJTurturo and stuff. And I guess we're going to start with questions, but just to finalize that point you made, the girls are saying that they absolutely need a place to play games and a real schedule and whatnot. So that was to answer Dr. Desrochers. Any questions in the audience?
Just one quick thing before the questions also is that the Even Strength website, the NWHL statistics website, has a Patreon, and also any funds that don't go directly to the website go towards a scholarship for 3 months data camp for women and other gender minorities that are interested in pursuing a future in sports statistics, but aren't able to afford it. So just want to plug that really quick
Yeah, that's
before.
awesome. Any questions? We've talked for a bit, so. Okay.
Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the NHL has held the trademark for the women's NHL for a few years now. Has there been any talk with that league as far as a partnership?
Trademark. Yeah. Yeah, no, they've been helping, and so they've been helping for a few years, I guess, with specific clubs, helping in a way. And the NHL has also gave money to both leagues, if I'm correct. Yeah, I think it was $50,000 to both leagues. Yeah, and no, that's not what I meant, but it was like very helpful, and we truly appreciated that. But I think in order to build something viable and sustainable, we would need some kind of like, almost like, in my own opinion, like similar resources. I'm not saying all resources that the NHL gets, but something that we do have front office. We do have truly someone who's marketing us and dedicated to one or two teams even, or a little bit like the WNBA has done in the past. But we do need someone to be under the umbrella of some kind of structure, and the resources being all there would be even more than I guess just the money that sometimes is poured in, but necessarily is helpful. But we need more than just that, I think. Good question.
But yeah, they still have the trademark on the name, so we would have to come up with another name if we would pair with other investors.
Yeah. The WNH.
Unless they wanted to, I don't know, release it.
Hopefully they have some kind of goal with, buying that, the WNHL. We would be more than happy to tag along with them.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So you mentioned you want to have games on weekends.
Can you speak in like
Yeah. Is it on? Yeah.
Yep.
You mentioned you want to have games on weekends. I'm a soccer fan. All the big games in soccer happens on the weekend, except the Champions League, which is a different thing. But imagine we have two good teams on women's side and two very good teams on men's side. How are you going to attract people to watch women games compared to the men's side? I don't know.
Yeah, so excellent point. And for those who aren't aware, the WNBA season runs opposite to the NBA to help just continue to have basketball all year and not to directly compete with their market. So I would be open to having a similar model if we could see that would be work. Like when I say on the weekend, it's in my mind I was still working. But if we don't have to work and we want to play on off nights at the men's, I don't see why that wouldn't be an option. But excellent point.
We'll repeat the question.
How do you guys perceive like the leagues, like the NHL, like league in the back pocket? And like, how do you feel that the inclusion of the women's game within the NHL could improve hockey more broadly and combat some more problematic aspects?
Partnered up for like a real partnership and being a little bit, and we're speculating here and whatnot, but like similar to the NBA and what they did with the WNBA, for instance. I believe that's what you're kind of referring to. I think that would obviously be a great solution. Is it the only solution? All doors are kind of open to it, but honestly, being under the umbrella of such a big, company, stakeholders, they've got it all. And obviously, I do know that the NHL probably wants to get into the women's market as well too. And the younger the fans are, the longer they last and they come to games and they buy tickets and they buy apparel. And again, I'm going money wise, and I think that's always that question. And I I believe there's a huge benefit for them to invest in women's hockey, and that there's an entire fan base that is, out there waiting for that to happen. And I think that they would, it's a social movement. In a way, it would be something great for them too, that they are providing the equal opportunity in a way. I think it would look good.
Yeah, and of course, like, from a resource point, it would be, I think, an appropriate match, but a big part of being a member of, like, the Professional Women's Hockey Players Association is that we want to align with an investor that's going to have the same values as us. So I think there will be hard discussions about how we want our game to be represented and marketed as well, because hockey is predominantly male and white, and we need to diversify. So we have a message of inclusion, and CJTurturo has always tried to strive and partner with other programs to include inclusivity, whether it's like gender or race or sexuality. So from a resource point of view, I would say with the NHL, it's kind of a no-brainer, but we were going to have discussions about where we align morally and how we want to be marketed, because I think that's really important to all of us, and I think it's important for the sport. The sport, not to bring up the climate, but it's been a rough week for hockey, especially on social media. It brought up a lot of important points, and I think it's nice to reflect on some of the stuff that was said and take a good hard look at, like, what do we want our sport to be, because for me, hockey has always just been something that I have loved to do. I get to go to and that's why I play. Like, that's why we play. I go to the rink because I get to see, like, my best friends every day. It pulls me away from work. It's good. It's healthy. I get to have fun. It's something I'm passionate about, and I think that's what we need the sport to be. It's create a community that's going to help the community. We want to give back, and for us right now, it's just continuing to speak to our sport and our value and helping grow the game, because hashtag for the game, it's for everyone. I think we've gone over one more thing. One more question? Anybody? I'm going to call on someone, just kidding. Okay, well, I think I'll conclude it for the sake of the podcast. CJ, Dr. Desrochers, thank you so much for being on the show. The audience, thank you for being attentive and patient with us. We tried to cover some analytics and we took a little spin, but I think it was important for us, and I appreciate you guys listening and spreading the message. Thank you.